This episode of the Better To podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and Needom, author of the Better To Burnout series. Hi, gang. Welcome to the Better To podcast with Needom. And yeah, I'm your host, Needom. So today, it's kind of an interesting day, kind of a special day. This episode marks the beginning of season 8. It also marks the beginning of 2024. Well, not exactly, because it is the 5th, but you understand what I'm getting at. And when I look back over the 8 seasons, which I kind of did briefly, I picked some of the better episodes and the top 3 most popular episodes and shared them on Instagram and this week and sometimes on TikTok. But, some of them were a little over 10 minutes, so it wouldn't allow me. So I've shared them on Instagram and Facebook and tried to get it out there because looking back, you can see how the show has changed. When I first started the show, there was a little bit of awkwardness to it because it was kind of like, well, I didn't fully know what I was doing. I admit that. My sign was backwards. I was nervous. Even though I was revealing the story about saving my mom, it was just kind of like there was nerves. I was putting myself out there to be vulnerable. And when I started the show, I was hell-bent on that better to moment. And I still think that's a great topic. I still think it's awesome that we all have these better to moments to reflect back on. However, after doing 8 seasons of that, I've kind of changed it up and I want to focus more on what my brand, even though I hate that word, is. And if you look at my books, well, we talk about music, we talk about acting, we talk about addiction. So I guess addiction can still fall here. And we talk about books because that's what I do. I write. I'm a writer and I love writing. And I love writing so much that for 4 years I wrote. I did not put a book out. But last year in 2023, I managed to put 3 out in a very short amount of time because I took that time for those 4 years and wrote. And this year I'll have another book coming out called Gotta Get High to Fall So Low. It's the continuing saga of Nigel and Ava. But that's not why you tuned in. That's just what I've been up to. And I'll be moving. And I'm trying to get all the podcasts done before that happens because when I move, life will be chaotic, as it is for anybody that is going through that process. But there's also another reason why this episode is kind of important. It's the 150th episode. And when I look back at that, it's like I've taped more than 150 episodes. This is the 150th episode to air. And that's because sometimes the conversation just wasn't there. I didn't think it would be good. And I mean, I released some dog episodes, I admit that. But now going forward, I'm trying to strive for bigger, better, and just things that are engaging, that are exciting, that, are fun. So when I sat down not too long ago with my producer, Rich, who actually is one of the guests on the show today, we talked about changes. And last season, in the midst of it, which I should have just waited till today, I changed the logo. I wanted to change things up. And Rich said to me, hey, I'm working with this band. I'm working with this band called Fast Suzi, and I have an idea. He's really always honestly hated my theme song. But at the time, it's all I could afford. And due to Rich and Matt being gracious, Matt is a guitar player in Fast Suzi, and you'll learn more about him in this episode as well. He's allowed me to have 2 songs called Hot Rod and Better Yesterday for my intro and my outro. So we're going to have some new music. We have the new image, the new logo, and the format's, like I said, it's a little bit different. So I guess without further ado for me yammering on, because you're like, get to it, broad. The guest today is Fast Suzi. They're a Chicago-based band that had a really good following in the 80s and 90s. They took some time off. Matt took some time off to tour, and he'll explain that in the podcast. And then now, Rich decided to, and Rich pushed, Matt decided to get the band together, but not back together. No. This is a different formation of the band. and they talk a little bit about that as well. So all of the band members except one, the bass player who had a prior commitment, are there, and you get to hear from him. It was a pretty fun podcast, so I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Donna from the Better 2 podcast here. If you've listened to my show, you know that it always sounds great. That's thanks to the guys at Third Ear Audio Productions. Third Ear Audio helps podcasters, broadcasters, musicians, and business owners get their important messages out to their audience. Rich and the Third Ear Audio team are easy to work with. They're efficient and understand that your message is important to you. With quick turnaround and the true caring of your needs, Third Ear Audio is your go-to for any audio message. Reach out to Third Ear Audio at 312-388-5596. Rich and his team will deliver for you. That's 312-388-5596, or you could email them at info@thirdearaudio.com or visit them on the web at www.thirdearaudio.com. Today, I would like to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite places, Synergy Collective, a bohemian lifestyle brand curating wellness for the mind, body, home, and soul. Located in the heart of the Midwest, Rockford, Illinois. Inside the storefront and online, you'll find a beautiful selection of crystals and metaphysical tools, boho apparel and accessories, sustainable home and beauty items, books, candles, and other unique gifts. They also offer a variety of community events, classes, and workshops in their Rockford location, including some select classes that are taught by me. So I invite you to explore the collective at www.shopsynergycollective.com and use code BETTER215 at checkout for 15% off your first online purchase. I'm here today with a band called Fast Suzi. They were introduced to me by my lovely, wonderful sound man, Rich Zei. You guys have heard him before on the podcast when him and I talked about, when I brought him aboard, we talked about the sound and everything else. But Rich is not just my sound guy. He's Fast Suzi's sound guy and producer. So, Rich, why don't you tell us a little about what's going on with this project and how this whole interview came about?
Well, okay. I've known Matt now, what's going on, years, probably more than either of us care to admit. I started off back in the old Chicago rock scene days. I was a sound engineer at a club, and these guys had come through. And I've known Matt. We have several different interlocking Venn diagram like circles of friends. So we knew of each other for a while. But then as Fast Suzi came through as my wife referred to it, the cult that is the Thirsty Whale. Matt's Fast Suzi came through, and somehow over the next probably year or so, it seemed like every time I turned around, they were on the bill and I was mixing, and we became much tighter after that. Fast forward, I don't know, 20 years or so. Matt and I reconnected through the power of Facebook, but I could be wrong. And we started talking about getting it back together. At that point, Matt can elaborate a little deeper on this. He was bouncing in and out of a couple of different projects, including, I believe that was at the beginning of the Rich Rath experience, if I remember correctly, Matt.
Well, you'd been hounding me for years before that.
Well, yeah. The stuff that the music this band plays is music that needs to be heard. It's the best way to describe it. And as we go forward and introduce and talk with Alex and Greg as well, they're a completely different. And are you okay, Matt? Am I keeping you awake? I should be. They've added a life to it that I didn't think was there, quite frankly. But so,
wow, wait a second. That sounds like you have all this faith, and then all of a sudden you're like,
well, so
they've had a new life.
Okay,
it's kind of like, dude, do you have faith or not?
Let me elaborate on that a little bit. There have been different lineups over the years. Fast Suzi, I believe we're at, if I look at at one of our group chats, I believe this is episode 5, the guitar player strikes back.
He gives titles to all the group chat names,
right? Because otherwise I can't keep. There was Fast Suzi 2 Electric Boogaloo for a while, and then there was the Dream Warriors, and Oh no, I'm sorry. This is episode 4, New Hope. Fast Susie 4, New
Yeah.
Hope.
Don Dokken wants your lawyer's name, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Needom and Howe. So over the years, there have been different lineups, as happens with bands, and quite frankly, there were a couple that were less than stellar. I've got full, I've always been carrying the torch for this band, but there have been times where the rest of the lineup, I don't think was holding on to a candle, for lack of a better way to say it, to different ways that things had come together, and kind of came in and came out. But Matt and I have been carrying the torch for this thing for the longest. Flash forward to about a year ago, we got Alex. Was it about a year ago, or is it less?
No, it's been
Earlier
less.
this year?
It was
Been less,
earlier
yeah.
this
I
year.
don't remember.
It just feels like it.
Yeah,
Right.
really, it does.
Lots happened. Lots
Yeah.
happened.
So so how this came about is that we're looking to freshen up, you and I were talking, Donna, about freshening up the direction and everything, just in production conversations. I said, hey, how about we change we change the theme song? And I talked to Matt, and he was like, sure, go ahead. And I'm taking snippets of a couple of Fast Susie songs, specifically A Better Yesterday, Hot Rod, and Giving It All to You. So you'll be hearing different pieces of that throughout the podcast as we go forward, at least this year.
And we've waived the licensing fee.
And we appreciate that.
We appreciate that.
Because, the podcast is still, even though I have 150 episodes, I don't have the sponsorship yet. So,
but that's going to change.
It is.
One day.
As it just seemed to make sense. If we're going to make the change and we're going to have new music on, it occurred to me, in one of those odd flashes of cogency that I have, that hey, why don't we get the guys on? And it turned out to work out perfectly, with this being the 150th episode and the first of the new season. So,
and it's not my age either.
Let go of the age. Okay. It's only a number.
Right. Yeah, except that if I were in the Spice Girls, I'd be Old Spice.
Hi-oh!
He's got jokes, ladies and gentlemen. He's got jokes.
Yeah, I've been in this.
He's got jokes, I tell you.
And the rest of them are road stories, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So Matt, why don't you take over for a minute so Rich can have a break?
Or we can have a break from Rich.
Either way is fine. I'm okay.
Okay, so Fast Susie actually started in 1988. And it actually took place in a record store in suburban Chicago. And this band used to be 2 guitars. And the other guitar player, who is my songwriting partner, he and I met at a record store that I ran. And if you remember the Record Town chain, you mentioned Musicland before. And we started talking about music that we liked. And it was all very much late 70s, early 80s hard rock. Not so much the hair metal and the makeup kind of music. I mean, there's viable music within that subgenre, but that wasn't what really hit us. So we wrote about a dozen songs and slowly started playing out. We flew under the radar in Chicago, just enough that people would know us, but not enough where it consumed our lives, because everybody, even at that point, had other ambitions. I was a professional touring guitar player for quite a while. And so the band gelled nicely. It was kind of like a nice puzzle piece fitting together. And at some point, like in a lot of things, people grew tired of each other and the band broke up. We had tried a couple of different versions through the years, just to get out there, just to get our feet wet and enjoy everything. And primarily covers, 1 or 2 songs. The band had a hit single in 89 and 90 that got airplay all over the country. And that was the song, the only real original song that we did. And about, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, Rich really kind of hit home with we really should redo this.
It is about 4 years ago because I released a book back in 2019 and he was at my signing and he was bringing up Fast Susie then. So,
well, we're going to have to start paying you, I think. Um, so I was in an REO Speedwagon tribute band that was made up of former members of REO Speedwagon. And I grew tired of it. And so Rich and I have had pretty constant conversations about this. And I just felt the time was right in 2019 to jump ship from that band. I made a lot of great connections, a lot of industry connections, and we started putting this together. We've had a lot of, if I say missteps, I don't think that's fair to some of the people that had been in this reboot, but we've finally found the secret sauce to bring this music back to more than where it was, and give it the respect that it deserves, yet build on it with new music. And Alex and Greg, and now Bill, who, like we said, is unfortunately not here today, they've injected a lot of new life into this. They've really kind of controlled and expanded my songwriting ideas, and it's been a really fun situation getting ready, writing new music, and getting ready for the live debut, which we hope will be middle to end of January.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this live debut going to be, or is it?
Well, we're still working that out. I have a number of ideas to market all of this. I come from a marketing background in general, and right now I'm trying to put it like a good salesman, trying to put together something that's attractive to a club owner in order to host this. I've been calling it a soft landing, and then move forward, trying to get booking agents to show up for like a quick 3-song set, if you will, a showcase.
Is Chicago more like LA now, where you, in order to get your gig, you're going to have those feet, those bodies in the door already, that they're going to know that you're going to bring those bodies in before you get that gig?
I'm really fortunate that this band still has quite a bit of recognition factor. I'm very lucky that a number of people who would come and see this band know me from the tribute band. And not just in Chicago, there are other markets where the tribute band played that are waiting for me to have this band ready to go out to other markets, kind of, weekend warrior type of things, but I'm confident that we'll do well as far as a draw goes. There are a lot of people that remember this band from 35 years ago. And the addition of Alex and Greg brings us a whole new demographic that shares similar musical tastes. They have good parents that play this music for them, and it'll catch on. But I'm old school. I want the booking agents to show up at this, and I will bombard them and market anything, to the point where people will at least want to see what the hubbub is about. And it's a matter of getting bodies in the door no matter what.
Yeah, of course. Because, I mean, you want your music heard, you want that audience connection, you want that feeling.
Right.
So, not to move on too much, Matt, but
it's okay.
Alex, since you're up there being quiet, let's hear from you. So how did you...
By the way, this is the quietest he's been in the 6-8 months I've known the kid.
I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, he's usually our loudest guy.
I'm here.
So tell us how you came into Fast Susie, and why are you so passionate about being in Fast Susie?
Well, so I have been playing in bands my whole entire life. I grew up, my dad was playing Beatles records. I wanted to be Ringo. But I love drumming. And I just, from playing in bands literally my whole life and going absolutely nowhere, and being on stages and trying as hard as I can to put together kind of what my vision was, and that, that team of everyone is on it. Everyone's, fighting for the same goal. really was having trouble finding that kind of thing. And it would just really drive me crazy. And I was kind of at my last straw. So I go on Craigslist and I'm like, where, you could either get a toothbrush or a band. And there I am.
Or something else that you really don't want.
No, they got rid of that section.
Ad.
Oh, okay.
They got rid of that section.
Okay.
And and then I saw that Fast Izzy there was an ad for a drummer, and I hit the skins pretty hard, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I reached out, and it was one of those where they're established, they have their shit together, they know what they're doing, and I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of intense because this is pretty much, this is a pro band, and I hadn't really gotten that opportunity before. So when I send the email through Craigslist, I get like a response in like 5 minutes, and it scared the absolute piss out of me because I was like, oh great, now what? And then
it's one of those moments. I had a moment like that about something, and I got the response really quick, and I sat there afterwards going, oh fuck, because it's like, what did I just do? So I get where you're coming from. It's just I wanted to do this, but now what?
Dog catches car. Now what?
So,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that happens, and I talked to Matt on the phone. He gives me a call, and we really clicked. I feel on that first phone call where I felt very good about it. And we had the same goals and the same mindset. And then I live in an apartment with my girlfriend. And my drum set was at the church. And I was leading the church band there, the praise team. And so I really couldn't be practicing the songs that I needed to be. So I scrambled, and I was with my girlfriend, Carly. We freaked out, and we were looking online. I was like, I need to find some way to drum quietly because I need to practice, and I'm freaking out. And finally, I found these silent stroke heads, and it was awesome because then I could practice in the apartment. And I practiced a lot. And then I showed up at the Fort Knox studios for the tryout, and I must have done something right. So,
well,
yeah.
When Rich told me about you, he had very high praise indeed about your playing. So, yeah.
I don't know, Matt. What is it about 15 seconds into Better Yesterday where we looked at each other and was like, "Yep, this is it."
Yeah, it was.
We made him sweat a little bit, but
it wasn't even 30 seconds, and we're all looking at each other, and without trying to give it away, we're nodding our head. And did you even finish the song, Alex, when we said you're in? I don't think you did. Although the funny thing is, he put so much energy into playing. I'm trying to find an oxygen distributor to give us an endorsement for shows. Keep a tank on stage by the drum kit for him because he puts 200% into it.
Wow. It's like 2 songs into the rehearsal that we do like every couple of days, and it's like drenched puddles everywhere.
Wow.
But that's just the energy he brings, and it's a really good it's a really like valuable thing to have as well, because just that constant energy, just you bring your A game to every rehearsal essentially. So it's like you're never really phoning it in. So there's always just that level of really killing it. And he's awesome. So I really appreciate all the energy he puts into everything he does.
It's
and
great.
Segways are for kids, so Greg jumped in.
I was going to say, Greg, you're talking. Nobody knows who you are, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up? So I'm Greg Barron. I am the singer, I guess.
You guessed?
And, yeah. So
he likes long walks on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. So and
Tito
ladies,
Puente, right?
And also don't tell my girlfriend I said that. I essentially say that just because it's still slightly surreal to me that I'm here. My story is a little bit more of you wouldn't say accident, but more just like of a convenience, lineup of all the elements lining up correctly. So I've known Alex since I was essentially 2. I ran outside of my house unsupervised, kind of just escaped, and just saw a kid across the block, and I was like, I'm gonna go hang out with him, and then we were friends from there on out. And so basically been together through all the stuff. A lot of the bands that he was in, I helped out with if I was like maybe supporting vocals. Sometimes I was lead. Sometimes I was like auxiliary percussion doing, like the djembe or something. I helped out in his church band. So we've always had this like connection. We've had little tiny music projects together. Um, but he's always been more of the genre, like the hard rock genre from like the 70s and 80s, kind of like the Fast Suzi. I've always loved the Beatles, but I don't know if you can. I don't know if there's video for this podcast. You could tell I'm a little bit more on the aggressive metal side of things. So when I was introduced to the concept of Fast Suzi, Alex was like, "Yo, we need a singer, dude. You need to try out. You need to try out. Like, here's the info. Here are the songs. Just do it. Just please. Like, I really want to, do this with you because we're a unit." And I was like, by this point, I'm in my 20s, and all the other ones had some level of drama or some level of falling out, or just it wasn't going anywhere. And so I kind of was like losing a little bit of that faith, but I was like, fuck it, let's try it. And same thing with Alex. Like, I guess I did something because my vocal wheelhouse is not what the original singers was. I'm much lower in the octave. I bring a little bit more of like a gravelly rasp to the vocals, give it a bit more of an edge. But
These are Stevie Nicks. These
yeah,
are Stevie Nicks.
So instead of hitting all those falsettos, I kind of just leaned into throwing a little bit more of that gravel in. And they took some of the music down like a key or two, and it works and it sounded good. And they were like, you know what, fuck it, you're in. And I was like, wow, I can't believe that worked. But I appreciated the opportunity, and so far we've been having fun and killing it. And the music we've written together has been, in my opinion, fucking banging. And I'm just excited to finally actually start putting it out.
That's awesome. So it's interesting because Rich and Matt are friends, and Alex and Greg are friends. So there's like this unity on two sides and two diverse aged ranges, but you both work with commonality, which is good. You're crossing the great divide.
Right. And our bass player Bill kind of sits in the middle because we have some commonality of playing out in the Chicago circuit. His experience is a little bit more recent than mine. So Rich and I talk about the heyday of Chicago hard rock, late 70s into about 1990. And Rich mentioned the name of the bar. It was called the Thirsty Whale, which was Chicago's version of Max's Kansas City in New York, the Whiskey A Go-Go or the Troubadour in Los Angeles, Lafayette's music in Memphis. And it was for a lot of musicians the golden time to be a hard rock musician playing original music. There were a lot of bands that came out of Chicago, and a couple of them really made it. Really made it big, like the band Disturbed, and Enough's Enough. They are they were two of the bigger names. The oddity about Fast Suzi is that, at least the original lineup, was that we were better known outside of Chicago than we were in Chicago, and everybody seemed to be fine with that. In fact, you can buy some of the original music on iTunes in Japan still.
Wow.
I still get royalty checks. They're about $1.35 a piece, and I just
it costs them what? $25 to $30 to FedEx the check.
To FedEx the check. That's right. And I just handed to my kids, here's your allowance. Yeah, it doesn't fly with them either. But Greg and Alex have breathed new life into this. Rich and I have always talked about, are we doing this as a tribute to the old band, or is it really a brand awareness thing? Take the best songs out of the original lineup and inject new life into the old material. I had brought a song to the band that was mostly done. I'm fortunate that I've met a number of people in the industry who've helped me write music. And this particular song, which I sometimes refer to as a song with three titles, was written by me and a man named Annie Tanis, who was in the band Black Oak, Arkansas. And Alex and Greg and Rich too had contributed enough to it that it's kind of all upended, and it's stronger now than the original version. And that's what these two guys bring to this band. Rich knows when to nod his head, yeah, that works, and to shake his head, it doesn't work. So it's really, I can't overstate that it's brought new life into this project. It's something I think that was sorely needed versus getting other musicians my age and just playing the old material.
Well, that would have been, because honestly, the easiest thing for us to have done was to find a bunch of guys that were from the old whale scene, or, either directly or tangentially, and just restart it and play the old catalog and be kind of a nostalgia act. There are a handful of those old bands that get together every year or so. I know that I believe Joker's doing another, hey, we're together again and we're 55 set on the South Side. But Matt and I we weren't interested in that. Those old songs need to be played and people need to hear them again because it's a tie back. But like Matt said, Greg and Alex have put such a twist on things that we didn't think we needed twisted, and then when we heard them, we're like, that's the right thing. That was what was missing on quite a few things. Now,
Well, a lot of bands that are doing, that are on tour, bigger bands, they change up their old songs because it gets old for them playing them. I mean, if you're playing the same song, over and over again for 20, 30 years, it's going to get old. Even for the audience, it's going to get old. Yes, there's that nostalgic factor, but it gets old at a certain point.
Unless you're Rush, then you have to play it exactly, otherwise you'll be murdered on stage. I'm kidding.
Yeah, there are a lot of bands that phone it in and play it exactly the same way every night.
Kiss's last tour. Sorry, I said that.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Oh, that's the
Motley Crue. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, right. The backing tracks are in the same order.
Right.
But there are a lot of bands that have become nostalgics because there's money in it. Mm-hmm. This band was never famous enough that we can say, well, we're just going to do this and rake in the cash. That's a little bit ridiculous. And I left a very popular tribute band, and we were making quite a bit of money, and it just wasn't enough. I needed to go back to the creativity level. When I was in the tribute band, I would be in my hotel room after gigs writing music, and it finally, Rich hit me at just the right time, and I've got, about 120 song ideas that need to get fleshed out, and it was all from being on the road.
The only thing that keeps coming to mind, though, is every time you say you were in an REO tribute band, that you just couldn't fight the feeling. You had to get out of there.
That was one of the
well played.
It's been in my head since he first said it, and I'm like, I have to say it. I have to.
Well, it's that was actually one of my more favorite songs to play live because it wasn't a simple. There were a lot of moving pieces in that song. As schmaltzy as it was, that was fun to play.
So if you really wanted to get technical, Donna, he couldn't fight the feeling anymore, so he took a flying turkey trot.
That's really deep. She doesn't know what the flying turkey trot is.
Yeah, but you do, and that's important.
It's in your bio. So anyway, now that we've killed that conversation,
Rich.
Hey, I've always been the first to admit I am the vibe killer. That's what I do.
So I'm not going to go with the old guard. I'm going to ask this question of the youngsters, as you guys have been calling them, which no disrespect.
The kids.
The kids.
Rude.
So what is your take? Do you want your stuff on Spotify or music downloading services? Do you want that?
I mean, yeah, of course. I would love to have more exposure and people just listening to it and jamming out to it. It would be so surreal and just kind of like a dream come true from like when I was a kid to just like be driving through traffic and just randomly hear a song that you made play on somebody else's rolled down window, something, or their car. Sorry.
I get it. And in your take, Matt?
I thought you were asking the kids.
I did.
Yeah, I was waiting for Alex to chime in.
Alex didn't say anything. But...
No, Alex didn't say anything. Go ahead, Alex.
Speak.
Well, I think, absolutely, 100%. It needs to be on as many platforms as we can get it, right? I mean, I want as many people to hear our music. I think that there is sort of a misconception going on that people who are me and Greg's generation, that they assume that there's not a big rock following. There's a huge rock following. I grew up with that rock following. All my friends are rockers, and there's plenty of us, and they're passionate, and they're, if I just feel like there's not a lot of, how do I say this? There's not as many options for my generation to listen to young people doing the rock music. I don't think there's not as many young guitar heroes and stuff like that. So I think that.
So you were not a fan of Miley Cyrus covering Metallica?
No comment. No, but I think that if the music is there, they will listen. And I think that if we get it on the right platform, there will be ears to listen to it, and they're going to come and support us. And of course, I mean, I think they're going to get hooked because they're going to hear it, and then they're going to see the live performance, and it's just going to, it's going to explode, in my opinion. So, because every one of us, including Bill, we're pushing ourselves to 100% because that is the top that you can give, and that's exactly what we're going to give to everyone, and we are giving it.
Fair enough. So what do you think, and this kind of goes to Rich too, when you're doing Spotify, most musicians I have talked to, which there's been a good number of country musicians, but I've talked to other artists as well. The one thing about Spotify is, and I've heard some grumblings that this isn't necessarily the case anymore, that we used to have the record culture, the CD culture, that you had the concept of a record, you had the concept of a CD, it all came out at once and that was it. But with Spotify and the streaming services, a lot of the audience wants a song a month. They want a song here, they want a song there, they want it to keep popping. And how do you feel about that? I mean, any one of you can take the question, but it's how do you feel about, you have to constantly produce. And I understand when you're marketing, you're trying to grow your band, you want your name out there constantly, but are you capable? And I know you have 120 songs written, Matt, but are you capable of putting out that much content that fast?
Well, so I remember the days, I was a kid, but I remember the days in the late 60s and into early 70s where the single was the only thing that mattered. It became an album culture in 74 through when the entire thing collapsed with Napster, where it became individual songs again. It's absolutely possible to come up with new material on a regular basis. You have to figure out what that window is, but a song a month is theoretically possible if you go back to the days when bands were recording entire albums, 10 songs particularly, because most record contracts basically said 10 songs, 10 sides, or what they used to be called. It comes to a lot of self-discipline. The first 2 songs that we've been working on have taken much longer than that because everybody's trying to feel each other out, and everybody's trying to accept when an idea is good or when it's bad, and that it's not a personal thing. And as we work on this more and more, it then becomes more like clockwork. So the first 2 are taking a little bit longer because, especially with the one I referenced, bringing to the band that was all done, it got turned in and out because some people couldn't hear what I heard. And so it was a matter, at rehearsal, we have a 10-minute rule where if somebody has an idea, as long as it's not a crack, Rich, that we're going to try it for 10 minutes and see if it works. He didn't hear that, did he?
No, you glitched.
Cut out for a second.
So But as we learn how to work together as songwriters, doesn't matter who brings the initial idea, we're all going to take it apart and make it ours. So one song a month, it's absolutely possible.
And
yeah.
and to kind of take, to pivot off of what Matt just said, I think it's actually going to be easier, for lack of a better way to say it, because we have a full 16-track recording studio in our rehearsal space. So, I mean, for us to, to record, to spend, basically, to take a Saturday, just to pick a day of the week, and say, okay, well, we're going to do drums from 10 to noon, and we're going to do guitars right after that and bass right after that. We can literally take a day, record a song, mix it, and have it published and released in the span of 36 to 48 hours at what is essentially free. I mean, it's not the 80s where the only way you can get something recorded and done is you have to go to a studio, pay for tape, track and do all that other stuff, bring your gear in, all that. Our stuff is there, set up, live, mic'd. I mean, I got to throw a couple other mics on the drums just because when we record rehearsal, I don't live mic everything. But the technology, what I've heard referred to as the democratization of recording, makes it easier for us, for a band like us, to get stuff put out. And more importantly, we get stuff put out as demos, in quotes, and that's a big giant set of air bunnies around that. What is a demo now versus what a demo was 10 years ago versus what a demo was 20 years ago is completely different. In my production career, I've heard demos that were radio ready, and it was, what do you want me to do with this? There's nothing. I can't make it any better. I've actually had to turn down projects because the demos that they sent me, I'm like, there's nothing to do that's any better. Just put this out. And on two occasions, it was literally the demo that I heard was released and was on the radio. And it's like, so that makes a big difference. It makes it different, that cadence of a song or two, or, in parlance, we could do an EP every 6 months and put out 3 songs every 6 months without really breaking stride.
So really the bigger time consumer would be your copyright and the paperwork that goes along with your registration. I mean, and that's not even that. I copyright my book, so it's not that hard of a process. Right. It's the matter of getting the forms back that it's done, but really it's feasible for you.
Oh yeah, it's more than feasible. It can be done. As long as everybody's on the same page, particularly schedule wise, it can be done. It's easy. Go
ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was just gonna say, don't you have to laugh that everybody was complaining that Napster basically destroyed the music business, and Napster, people were downloading music for free, but with the streaming services, you're only going to make pennies on the dollar.
I have friends who are part of that Spotify lawsuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody from Spotify is listening to this, take the music.
The podcast goes on Spotify, but the same thing.
Okay, there you go.
Here's the thing: the same thing can be said this way. I'm not in Kindle Unlimited, but Kindle Unlimited does the same thing to authors that Spotify does to musicians.
Yeah, in our case, it doesn't affect us because this is not the career. This is not our livelihood. I have a friend who does quite a bit of music and throws it up on Spotify, and he's getting millions of spins and got like a $3,000 check. So yeah, when you think about that, it's really kind of ridiculous. That's why I think we should just release everything on 8-track.
I'm fine. I'm down.
Alex and Greg will tell you what an 8-track is later.
Shut up.
No, I have 8 tracks downstairs in the basement. That were my father-in-law's. Mm-hmm.
What's interesting, Matt, so there's a punk band in California that goes to used record stores and buys cassettes and then puts their music over the top of the old cassette. So you could buy a Joan Jett tape from them at a show, but it's their demo.
That's a cruel trick.
I think it's awesome, quite frankly. I think it's cool as heck.
It's really funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Greg, I'm going to get right back to you, but I want to say cruel trick. When I worked in radio, I had somebody that kept calling for Whitney Houston Run to You over and over and over again. So me being the wise ass, I decided to play Bryan Adams Run to You. That did not go over well. I got a nasty phone call, but I laughed my ass off about it. So I understand.
In the computer, it was just the title. Yeah.
Oh, no, unfortunately, that was the station I got to pick everything. So it was
okay.
Do your Andy Travis impression in?
That's right.
Greg, what were
three people on this call got that reference.
Will you let Greg talk, please?
Go ahead, Greg.
Yes,
it wasn't important. I was just
no, it is important. Reiterate then, please. This is part of your podcast as well.
Of course, no. I'm not just enjoying the commentary because this is what I enjoy at every rehearsal is those two yammering for what seems like 3 eons. No, I was.
Wow.
Wow.
No, I was hang on. I need to go downstairs and have my wife pull the shank out of my kidney there.
Is that what you're calling it lately?
Hey.
It's all out of love. No, I was just gonna say I would put it on literally everything. I would take all of our music and demo it on discs, demo it on cassette tapes. Hell, to go and get a record player and get a demo of that at some point. Everywhere. What Alex was saying earlier was just like as much exposure, as much release, as much mediums as possible would be the goal. It doesn't have to be just be Spotify. To get like on there, people get it randomly into their playlist just based off of like recommended. And so like any exposure is great exposure, especially if it comes from the quality and the energy that we put forward. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to reiterate. And I think also what I was going to say earlier to the point is I think once a month is absolutely doable. I think the one thing I would always keep in the back of my mind is I do not want to fall into this like a pattern. I want the music to always feel, fresh, like inspired. I don't want it to like have to feel like we're a production line churning stuff out just to like meet a quota. If things have to take a little bit of extra time to find that that vibe, that love, the passion, so everybody falls in love with the song, and it's not just like 3 of us love it, one of us is like I'll live with it. It's like we find that beautiful mix where all 4 of us can like really just kill it because it's everything that is about us. Is we put all of our being into each song, give it all a piece of our soul, and then from there, we make sure that all of us love it. And then, if we don't, workshop it, and if that takes a little bit longer than, an average time, I think it's still worth it because I think people would definitely feel when you're phoning it in, even if it's like new music. You get to the point where like a band's releasing something every year, full 12-track album every year or every year and a half, and you start to feel like by the 3rd one of those in the line, it's like, are some of these kind of copy and pasted? Like I don't want to fall into that kind of rhythm. So I think that's just the one thing I wanted to circle back to, but that was my 2 cents.
No, thank you for your 2 cents.
But enough about Imagine Dragons.
Shots fired. All right.
So let's talk about Hot Rod. Matt, you wrote it, right?
It was a group with the original lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and it has gone through a number of changes. Originally, the song was always meant to be about a car, and the original version, I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's so not about a car. and it was the tempo and the way the drums were, it was very 80s high energy song. It had always been meant to be more like Deep Purple's Highway Star, which is how we've essentially rewritten it. Greg's come up with some great lyrics that fill in the blanks from the original version that I'm glad are gone. I shouldn't say that. I'm happy that it's closer to what the original vision was. And it's the set closer. And it is still very high energy. It's not 200 miles per hour, but it's still high enough energy. I'm an old showbiz guy. You leave people wanting more. You don't leave with a ballad. You don't leave something with a long good night, thank you for coming. You slam them in the face just like you did at the first song. And this song is pretty perfect at this point. It's night and day. If you heard the original versus what we're doing now, you would be surprised. And it gets quite a bit of positive feedback from people who've heard it, who are not musicians, and those who are. So we're on to a good thing with this. This is very much a signature song. This band originally had about 3-4 of them, but this one is really, this and the opener, a song called "The Better Yesterday," are really signature songs for what the band's all about. It's a great song.
Better Yesterday, what is that about?
Better Yesterday was an exercise in songwriting for me. I had this idea I wanted to write music for other people. And A Better Yesterday was actually written for Ronnie James Dio, with the idea that it would be on his third album. And I got it through to management. And long story short, there was a disagreement about money. And so one thing led to another. And I said, well, this has been really great. And it would have been a nice feather in my hat. I could, but it was important. Number one, it was important to get paid, but it was important that it got respect. Yeah, it was important that my name was on it, which none of those would have happened. So I took the song back, and we made a couple of changes to it, and it's high energy, and it has imagery and positive information. Like, the first line of the second verse, and you guys are going to correct me because I've only had one cup of coffee today. There's a line that says, remember our lives, there once was a time where the dreams had made sense, but the words never rhymed. And it's supposed to be not, old-fashioned rock and roll, girls and cars and all this and that. It's an introspective. And it was written, like I said, with Ronnie in mind, and it's not quite like what you hear other bands like us doing, unless you follow that Dio path. We don't particularly do that, but it has that element in it. Yeah, we have a radio song from back in the day, and then we have Hot Rod, which is a high energy, leave them wanting more song. So they're kind of all over the place. That's something I'm really proud of, not only with the original lineup, but with these guys too, because they pull it off really well.
But that's important to have something diverse, because then you appeal to a larger audience. One band, I know you were mentioning Imagine Dragons, but one band from the 80s that comes to mind that I swear every song sounded exactly alike was The Outfield.
Oh yeah.
Hang on now. You're touching sacred ground with me.
Oh
boy.
Really? Yeah. The Outfield?
Play Deep is one of my all-time favorite records.
I'm sorry. I am sorry for you, but that's okay. I had a friend who loved The Outfield too, and I'm just like, it's the same damn song.
So for me, that record specifically, a mentor of mine who's sadly passed now almost 10 years, used to sing the high fifth harmony to all of those songs live without a mic, and you would hear it over the PA. You remember Big Marky used to do that all the time. And out of The Outfield, Honeymoon Suite, all of those, lots of those English and Canadian bands of that era, Mark was, and Mark had golden ears, and, my sort of tarnished tin ones are learned it at that, but that's sacred,
so is it
sacred
really,
ground.
But is it the record or is it him?
No, I
There-
was a fan. I was a fan of the outfield before.
Okay.
Mark singing hitting that note was always like, oh, cool.
Okay,
But
well,
there's an amount of nostalgia there, but at the same time, those are great songs.
I'll just keep that in my little hat.
Well,
If I ever need that.
call it a guilty pleasure. I surprise a lot of people because I tell people my songwriting mentor is Carole King.
Well,
And and it's Rich's interest in the outfield kind of surprised you, maybe disappointed you, but it surprises a lot of people. They see the hair, they see the Marshall amplifiers on stage everywhere, and this and that, and I go, Carole King is the greatest American songwriter there ever was. I'm sorry, Neil Sedaka, but it's her, not you. And I'm sure that Alex and Greg probably have a guilty pleasure too that maybe they don't want out.
Or you can share.
for Greg, it's Miley Cyrus.
But only covering
No.
Metallica.
No,
No, it's just
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus in general.
no. But no disrespect to her. I just I don't know. I liked her when she was playing Hannah Montana when I watched her on Disney Channel.
Hey,
And
hey,
then-
hey, 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 hey.
Yes.
She was under
And
21 then.
then-
Let's not discuss that.
She was under 17 then, yeah.
Whatever. But again, like I'm saying, I was like a kid. Where you guys are taking that?
Donna, it's like
Um,
you set foot. It's like you set foot in rehearsal. It's like this is how this goes.
You know,
No,
I
obviously.
will say this: when Prince William was a younger guy, I was like, he's really cute, but I'm like, man, no, he's underage. So no, I swear, you can look. You can look.
And Alex keeps rolling his eye. Alex keeps rolling his eyes.
No, I would say it would depend. I mean, one of my guilty pleasures is I don't really like much modern pop music, but for some reason if if a YouTuber or a smaller band does a metal cover of it, for some reason I'm like, I like that now. I like the song now just because there's a metal cover of it. So I guess metal covers, not even the best quality metal covers of popular current day songs, those are a guilty pleasure. I don't know why. And you'll hear me every once in a while just covering them. There's one, I think there's a Billie Eilish's Bad Guy covered by a band named Anchor. And I just, for no reason, I'll just put it up in my song every once in a while, put it up in my car every once in a while, crank the song to 45 on the stereo and just it down the freeway. It's a vibe. So
Alex,
Yep.
what's your guilty pleasure?
Well, I'm a blues man, so I like 1927 type of blues. I like real old stuff like Blind Eye Connie Williams and Lemon Jefferson and all that stuff. Skip James, Robert Johnson, all that stuff. So I'm a huge I'm a big record vinyl collector. So I'll just sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I just listen to my old stuff. So.
And Slayer.
I do like Slayer. I do like Slayer, but old blues.
I mean, he and I came up together, so we do have a little. He has a little bit of my metal in him too. I mean, we like.
I grew up
together.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Slipknot pits and Slayer pits and all that too. But I all the time we'll play the song Hot Rod, crazy energy, and then to cool off, I'll just have Blind Lemon Jefferson playing on my phone, and I'll just be sitting there in front of everyone. And they're like, "What are you doing?"
When you gotta let the steam off.
I'll let the steam. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When we take breaks at rehearsal, he picks up an acoustic guitar and starts playing and singing all this old blues stuff, all this Mississippi Delta stuff. I've started to call him Blind Lemon Alexander.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, something that Rich and Matt know, that you used to be able to buy vinyl for $7 or $8 for a record, and now that same record from the same artist is $25.
Oh yeah, no.
At least.
Don't even get me started. I've been trying to find some records because my friends got me a record player last year, and I've been listening to it pretty frequently. But I'm a broke boy. I'd like more variety, but damn it, every time I go out there, it's like, yeah, it's like
Half price,
$45 for this one. Just like, stop.
half price books for the win, bro.
Half price books, but you know what? I still have my vinyl from the 80s.
Yeah, well.
So,
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I just sometimes I don't trust it if I can't see them before my eyes, and like I can like look at both sides to make sure it's not dirty, make sure it's not scratched. Because sometimes
you can do that at half price.
You're able to do that at
okay.
half price.
Okay. I don't know why. I guess I just haven't seen the store before around. I just for some reason assumed it was an online thing.
This is not a sponsorship for half price books.
Yeah,
go ahead, Matt.
I think we need to get like a big stack of K-Tel records for him.
Oh God!
Right,
and just
that's where I heard it the first time.
He could listen to "Don't Give Up on Us," David Soul, all
There
day
you go.
long, but his imagination and his talent is so good. He'll go, "Can we do a metal cover of this?" And
that would be interesting.
I'm like, well, 10-minute rule.
The terrifying thing is I'm hearing the arrangement in my head.
Wow.
Yeah, that's frightening because I only threw that out there for comedic content.
Are you gonna?
I know what we're doing next Saturday.
Maddie, you know that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So playing live, do you get requests for Freebird? It's just a running joke, you know that, for most live bands.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part of it is that Matt and I know the actual DJ in Chicago who started that whole trend. That was Kevin Matthews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was
somebody called in on his show as a he's like, I'm going to this concert that I hate and this lame. My mom going with my mom, and Kev's like, well, just yell Freebird after every song, and now it's a thing.
And now it's banned in Guitar Center.
My friend used to be a member of World Class Noise. She was a backup singer, and every time they had a gig, no fail, somebody would scream that out.
Kevin Matthews.
I'm that guy that gets the app of the lighter, and at inappropriate times I hold the phone up with the lighter, like back in the day, how we would hold the lighter up. Yeah. I've done that at smooth jazz shows.
Because that's fun.
It is funny. I did that to Peter Frampton, and it threw him. It was hysterical because he's singing, and I held up the thing. I was third row, and it completely threw him. It was the funniest thing.
Yeah, would you appreciate somebody doing that to you?
Yeah, bring it. I want him to. It's fine.
Please.
What were you going to say, Rich? I
was going to say, before we, Matt probably will have a little more detail on this than I will, but our bass player Bill is part of an amazing charity that we're going to be doing some stuff with. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that before we go down a completely different rabbit hole, that we bring up Guitars for Vets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bill is very passionate about Guitars for Vets, and he started a chapter in suburban Chicago. And so I've been learning about it from him. I've been learning online. We've made the decision that we want to align with this group as much as we can. I like to think that we're going to wind up being one of their ambassadors. And if you go to their website, you see this massive group of musicians who are all part of this, all different genres of music. And what they do is they pay for 10 guitar lessons for vets, and they give them an acoustic guitar and accessories, picks, strings, a capo, what have you. And I'm looking at information here. They've given away 4,300 guitars and 43,000 lessons. And they're looking for contributions all the time. I know money is tight for everybody, but it's a good way to say thank you to vets for serving our country. Some people are sincere when they thank them, and some people give a whole lot of lip service. This is a way, even privately, to thank them. Any amount will do. Their threshold to be able to do this is $200 per vet, and in the grand scheme of things, $200 is not a lot of money when you consider what's going on. It would have been nice if something like this would have been available for vets. I come from a Navy family, and I had one uncle in Korea, one in World War II. It would be great if there was something like that for them. So we're, as often as we can, we're going to, at live shows and our marketing pieces, we're going to highlight them. And when we get to a point where we're going to have a merch table where you can buy t-shirts at shows and this and that, we're going to have like a tip box to raise money for them. I think this is, there are million worthy causes, but I think this deserves a little bit more of a forefront. I mean, they have 110 chapters across the country, but that isn't a lot when you consider how many veterans are out there and could use this for any given reason. So I'm really very proud of that.
Yeah, and as a, obviously, being musicians and in the music business, the guitar part, but Bill's also a vet, so that it's personal to us, and it's personal to the band. And I mean, not that it wouldn't have been otherwise had we not known Bill and found out about this, because I got news for you. Had I stumbled across this without knowing Bill, I definitely would have brought it to us and said, "Hey, this is something we should get behind because it's important."
Right. And plus, you got to think about, like, a lot of times you think about like how vets can sometimes be treated, and it's like not always the best. And it's lovely to be able to provide, something that makes them feel, happier, more comfortable, and more expressive, because I mean, we all know music is one of the best forms of expression. So if there's anything that, could ever be bothering them, personally or in their lives, especially following service, then it's just a beautiful way for them to be able to kind of like put that kind of energy and put that emotion into something, that can soothe them. So it's just beautiful. And Bill's such a great guy. He's, such a patient, such a patient, caring person.
With you, yeah.
So, like, no, just like he's great. He's been, he's had such a short tenure with us so far, and already he's just like probably one of the nicest people I've met in the industry in general. So just big shout out. And honestly, it's such a great cause to support.
I'll definitely put a link in the show notes. That way, if anybody's interested, they can donate as well.
Absolutely.
So I think I've taken up enough of your time, but before we wrap this up, final words from each of you, and we're going to leave Rich for last.
Oh, thank God.
Wow.
So
again with the shank and the kidney.
No, I'm just going to go back to how we really introduced everybody. So Greg, you go first.
So yeah, again, I'm Greg Barron, singer for Fast Suzi. And this was a lovely experience. I really look forward to being able to put out more new music with the band, putting in more like my energy, my kind of, my little bit of a flair into every project that we do. And it's just been such a fun time. I love Alex. I've loved him for years. We're basically brothers at this point. So always excited to put more passion into projects involving him. And then Matt and Rich and obviously Bill as well have just been so supportive, so helpful. Especially since I'm a little less professional, since I'm a little bit more new to like the professional side of this industry. So them just kind of mentoring me and doing being as patient as possible with me as I kind of get my bearings step by step throughout the process. Just shout out to them, and I appreciate you for having me here today. So thank you, and rock on.
Correct. Alex?
I would just say for everyone listening, this music, the new music, the old music, the way that we've changed, the way that we've shifted some of the old music to how it sounds today, right now. This is a new experience. This doesn't sound like any other band. This is unique. This is hard rock. This is in your face rock and roll. And we're gonna give it what you're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear it in the records, and you're gonna see it live. We're gonna give our 100% every single night, this is gonna be awesome when we get up there on stage, and we're excited. And then in mid to late January, be ready, because we're coming, man. This is gonna be sick. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, Matt.
The historic tagline of Fast Suzi was rock and roll to save your soul. And anytime we went out, the shows were called the Salvation Tour. And next year, which is only a few days away, next year is World Salvation Tour 2024. I have told anybody who's gone through the doors of this band, there is only one concept here, and it's world domination without egos. We are going to blow the doors off of every place that we play. We're going to knock your socks off, and you're going to be asking, when are you playing next? The energy in this band is unlike anything I've been around, and it's going to show on stage, whether it's a small stage or whether it's on a really big stage where we belong. We're going to bring this band to as many venues in the Chicago area that we can, in the Midwest and across the country, if it's to be. And every single person will be blown away by this, because Alex is right. This is very different. It is very different from the original. It has this new life that has really taken on a life of its own. And I would tell anybody watching, listening to this, if you see a listing of us playing, come see the band. You will not be disappointed. And if you're seeing this and you come to a show, tell us that you saw this podcast or you heard the podcast, and I don't know, maybe we'll buy you a beer, something, because this recognition, this opportunity to be on the show with you is gold as far as I'm concerned. Not just because any publicity is good publicity, just spell my name right. It is targeted to people that we want our music targeted to. And so we appreciate it. But if you're out there and you see something that we're playing near you, whether it's Chicago or somewhere else around the country, come see us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt. So, Rich,
I get to wind up. I get to be the closer here.
Yes.
I have to say this. I have put more of my heart and soul into this project than probably any project I've done since I was 15. And it's purely because it's worth it. These are great music. These guys are, the musicianship in this band now is better than it was in the 80s, quite frankly. And it's really reached out and become part of my DNA. And Donna, God, I'm actually speechless, which is kind of bizarre for anybody who knows me.
No.
I'm having a hard time.
I'm having a hard time. The temperature to drop really bad in Chicago now since
right.
No, hell's freezing over as we speak.
Right. But in all seriousness, this is the music, the vibe, the energy. Alex and Greg have really injected a new life into some of these older tracks. And the new stuff has what I will say is the perfect merger of modern hard rock and classic hard rock. It's that perfect dovetail, which could have gone completely the other direction and been, but absolutely this, to pivot off what Alex said, this is stuff you got to hear, man. You got to experience it, because it will change you.
And Bill's contribution.
What's that?
Bill's contribution to this has been immeasurable.
Has been on a daily. So these guys, when they're rehearsing, I'm usually sitting in the control room recording the rehearsal, but I spend more time listening to Bill's bass playing along with the drums, just to listen to the interplay between them. It's amazing. And I've not done that in a long time, dude. But yeah, this is music you got to see. This is a band you've got to see when we come around, and we're gonna, sooner than later, we're gonna be coming to a stage near to you, and looking to blow doors off.
Nice. Nice. Well, I thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
Thank you.
absolutely. Thanks, Donna.
You might have heard my voice hosting the Better To podcast, but did you know I'm also the mastermind behind the Better to Burnout book series? The stories unravel the lives of Nigel Hartigan, the groovy bassist of Sambuca Fedora, the stunning singer model Ava Richards, and the suave record executive singer Russell Langford. Love, romance, and drama run rampant as their lives tangle up. But brace yourself, folks, because not every tale has a happy ending. Snag your copy today from most online booksellers. So the podcast with Fast Susie was interesting. It was fun. And I can tell that these guys have a lot of passion and a lot of heart. And that is half the battle in a band. I mean, you have to be passionate about what you're doing because if you're not, it's going to show. It's going to show in your playing. As they said, you can't phone it in. And when you look at a band, it's kind of like a marriage because you have give and take and you have to get along. And if things aren't right, if the mix isn't right, and I'm not talking the sound, I'm talking the mix of people, you know that moment when everybody comes together and everything falls in place that you have magic and that you're going to make something wonderful and inspiring. And I think that's where these guys are right now. They are inspired. They want to make this the best thing in the world and they want to dominate. At least Chicago to start with, and then the US, and then who knows, maybe the world. But they're ready to do it. They're ready to rock. Sorry to be bad and say that, but that's where they're at. They're ready to do this. And I think Alex was right that a lot of the times we dismiss rock now because we don't look at people that are younger making it. We only look at who we know of. So it's time to open up that door and let other people in because there are so many new artists out there, so many new creators that you can have a feast for your ears at any time. You just have to be willing to listen and be open. So, the one other thing that I didn't talk about, which I let the guys talk about, was the guitars for vets. And when you look at that, somebody giving somebody a guitar when they are in struggle or strife, that may save them. You don't even know how much of a gift that could be. When my uncle, he's not a vet, but when my uncle's stressed, he makes a roux. And if you know anything about cooking, making a roux, I cook. I can't stand making roux. It's the most boringest process in the world. You're just sitting there going back and forth. You got to get the right color, right consistency. I don't have the patience. But for my uncle, he makes roux and he has a freezer full. And he said it's very soothing, very calming, very relaxing. And the same can be said when you're playing a guitar, as long as you're comfortable with it. And learning a new skill can also help the mind heal. So when you learn those basic chords and you're strumming and you're just playing along, it's going to be something that's going to connect with your creative side and it's going to be something to soothe the savage beast. And at that point, you can start healing from whatever trauma you may have went through. So a $200, it only takes $200 for them. And I'm not trying to do a sales pitch here, but $200 can go a lot to heal somebody. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to work 100%. But if it gives them something to focus on and to heal and to help grow, I mean, who's to say that they don't find something out of it that they didn't realize they could do? That they find a passion that awakens something and that, hey, they can pick up that guitar and go to a local coffee shop and just play and have people enjoy what they're doing. And connecting with people is one of the biggest important things in the world. It supports us emotionally and it heals us. And that's what these vets need. And it's a great way to thank them for their service. So now that is my 2 cents on that, I think it's a great charity. And there is a link in the bio. So season 8, hard to believe. I thank you guys who have been with me this whole journey. And I look forward to season 8 being bigger and better. We have focused on many things, and I will still focus on some people's personal stories, but I want to make this a bigger and better podcast. And while I love sharing people's stories about how they went after their dreams, sometimes those stories got a little bit repetitive. So I wanted to branch out and I wanted to follow my passions, which are music and books and movies and acting and all those things. And yeah, there is a darker side to it. And yes, we will talk about that as well. But having more musicians on is something I want to do. And I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do, having these people on here. So, on that note, I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whenever you're listening to the podcast. I thank Rich Zei, as always, for doing the production. And I thank Fast Susie for being a guest and for my intro music and outro. So, on that note, have a great day, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.